So before we actually assemble our dice, what we are going to do is make sure that we have our score lines folded nice and crisply so that when we go to assemble our dice, we've got nice crisp fold lines. So pretty much every fold line folds in first, then out, and you'll notice that I'm using the end here to make sure I get a nice crisp line. I'm also lining up my edges as I'm folding them to make sure that they are scoring properly. So once again, first one here, and then we are scoring all three of those ones that were 1/2 inch apart from each other, and then the last one on the end here. So that one is done. We're going to do the same thing for this one, and it really doesn't matter what order you do them in, as long as you do all of them. If you were to try to assemble your dice without doing this, you may not have nice crisp folds. You may not have, your card may not fold flat to put it in an envelope, and you may kind of have a little bit wonky dice. So it's definitely worth the time to do this. It's going to save you some aggravation at the end. There we go. So we've got all of our pieces scored. Now we are going to flip it over and we are going to add tape. Now the tape that I have it's double-sided tape, it's score tape. I have 1/4 inch here, but I would recommend using 3/8 inch. 1/2 inch I think is going to be too wide, and you'll notice I'm doing 2 lines on these 1/2 inch pieces, and that's because the mechanism needs to stick in here. We want to make sure that it's sticking really well so that it doesn't slip out. We're using an elastic band for that, and if it slips out, then your card won't turn into the box once you get it out of your envelope. So we want to make sure that that stays in there really well and doesn't have a chance of slipping out. And these other 1/2 inch tabs, if you wanted to put 2 lines of tape in there, you could. They're just a tape to create our box. We don't actually need it, so it's not necessary to make sure that you have 2 lines on there. It's just a little bit using more tape. So I'm using an elastic band or a rubber band, and I need to cut it down to 3.5 inches. I wouldn't do it any shorter than that because you risk it being too tight and slipping out. And by too tight, what I mean is, so the rubber band is across the bottom there. So this folds like this to go flat. So your band there is pulled across, and you want to make sure that it's not going to pull out completely. All right, so I'm piercing a hole right in the center there. And I'm poking my band through that hole. I only want a 1/2 inch showing here. So I'm going to take the tape off. I happen to have a nail on this finger that makes it easier to take the backing to the tape off. If you have a hard time with it, you could always use a set of tweezers. And then when you fold this over, you're going to have tape on tape with that elastic band in between. And I use my bone folder to make sure that that's stuck really well. And now I'm going to put it through this side. And you'll notice I'm putting it through the side that doesn't have the tape on it. Hardest part is getting it through that hole. There we go. Sometimes it goes in super easy, and other times it wants to fight me a little bit. So once again, make sure that I've got that tape in there, or that band, so it's going to be within the tape. I don't want it sticking out and being able to see it outside of the cube. fold this in half. Use my bone folder to make sure that tape has really good contact. And then I'm going to stick my cube together. Now, this tab at the end here, I'm going to put, so you've got the two pieces that are the same. I'm going to put it on the side here that doesn't have the tab. And I'm using my bone folder, bone folder to make sure that it's stuck really, really well. These half triangle pieces on the corners here, very easy to find out where they go. You just take the tab off and you stick them to the side that's right near them. So both of those are down. I'm just going to take my bone folder, make sure it has some really good contact. It's really easy to use that bone folder to do that until the last two. Then it becomes a little bit more difficult because you've got the elastic band fighting you there. Oops. Out of the camera there. There we go. Last of these triangle tabs. Right there. And sometimes you can just use your finger to make sure you've got good contact. So the last tab is this one here. I'm going to tuck that in. And then I'm actually going to kind of flatten this edge to make sure it's got some good contact. There we go. So we've got our cube done here. So in order to flatten it, to fold it for our card, that tab that the elastic band is in, it's going to kind of want to be in the way. So you're going to want to put your fingers in there and flatten it to one side so that your triangles can fold in. There we go. And you should get it to be able to fold flat. So once it comes out of the card, it's going to fold into a cube. And this is where we cut those half triangles off. You're never going to get it to come completely flat. I tried tightening it to see if I could get it to go completely flat, but that's when you risk the elastic band releasing. So in order to decorate your cube, all you're going to do, in order to make it a dice, I'll show you how to do some how to do alternatives in another video. So I've got a 1/2 inch hole punch here. You're going to take a different color from what you made your dice out of, and you're going to punch a bunch of circles, and then you can glue them on. Now this side here that has the folds and then the slit, you can't put anything on the edges of those cardstocks, and you can't glue anything onto the folds because you're going to interfere with how the card works. So in order to get around that, I just made that the side for the two, and I just glued my dots where they weren't going to interfere there. Make that one. I'm going to make that 3. I'm not going to do all the sides because I think everyone knows how dice work, and once you've glued one dot on, it's pretty easy to know how to glue more on. There, and then I left that side empty because once it comes out of the card and sits, you're really not going to see that side anyways, so I didn't really worry about it. So you're going to finish gluing your dots on the side of your die, and then your die is complete. Then you can make a second one. You could do it exactly the same colors. You could do it a different color. I'm not going to show you how to do the second one because it's exactly the same as the first one, so there's no point in watching a second video. If you need to watch it again, just repeat this video and the one before this and complete your second dice.